Right, get a view of the t-shirt, folks. It's important for this video because I have a letter from the Civil Aviation Authority of New Zealand, the people who make the rules and enforce the rules regarding drone flying and other stuff. But the only important part is drone flying, we know that. But what have they sent me a letter about? And well, they want my assistance. They want my help. They probably acknowledging that I'm one of the most experienced, one of the most knowledgeable drone flyers in the country. Been doing this since before you could buy drones. I think, when was my first drone flight? 2009? Long before the old Phantom came on the scene. We had to build them ourselves back in those days, so I've had a lot of experience over many, many years. And also, remember, I'm the guy, I have RC Model Reviews channel. It teaches you all about the technology and aerodynamics, so I've got a very great breadth of knowledge and a great depth of knowledge. So if there's anyone who can help the CAA, it's probably me. Right, what have they got to say? Well, this letter starts out with a bold, first of all it says, Dear Bruce, because we're on first name basis. CAA and I are like this, we're buddies, because we've spent a lot of time chatting over the years, and we left on reasonably good terms last time we chatted, but we'll see what happens. Anyway, so Dear Bruce, and then they say, concern received by the CAA arising from a Facebook video posted on the 23rd of June 2025 showing footage taken by a remotely piloted aircraft, RPA, it's a drone to you and me, and it's a request for assistance. So there you go, they want my help. They need the benefit of my knowledge, skill and understanding. There we go, that's fine. I feel privileged that they want to talk to me about these things. Anyway, let's read on, shall we? And but just to make you see, it's all bold, see, it's in bold, and every letter, every first letter of every word is capitalized. That's how important that sentence is, you know. Ink is not cheap, but they go the extra mile, capitalize every first letter. Anyway, they say, and they kind of repeat themselves, the CAA has received a concern regarding footage contained in a Facebook social media post. They must be busy. Dated 23rd of June 2025, in which you have provided commentary, and indeed I did. I remember that video, and it was a video I did about some of the bad things our local council's doing. Who would complain about a video like that? Anyway, it says, in which you provided commentary on a number of projects underway and around Tokoroa. As I say, I regularly go out and I film things in the local community and keep our community up to date. We don't have a local newspaper anymore. The council has its own propaganda sheet, but it's all full of lies and rubbish. So I have taken the place of the local newspaper. I provide the public with a source of information, and sometimes that includes drone footage, RPA footage. And, you know, so that's what I do. I provide the information. Don't say I fly the drone. Don't say I fly the drone. And neither does CAA. To be fair, CAA have not accused me of flying a drone here. They've simply asked for my assistance. That's fine by me. Right, so they say within the video is footage which appears to have been taken from an RPA operating overhead and in the vicinity of council property. Oh, what the hell is the relevance of being in the vicinity of council property? It's not illegal to fly within the vicinity of council property. It's not even a safety concern to fly within the vicinity of council property. The only people who would be concerned that a drone had been flying within the vicinity of council property might be... I got nothing. Anyway, when I understand that prior consent had not been obtained from the property owner. Now this is, if you're not from New Zealand, if you don't know New Zealand's rules, it'll come as a surprise to you perhaps, that here in New Zealand, the whole country is a no-fly zone. You can't fly a drone anywhere in this country. No drones, no model aircraft. Illegal to fly them anywhere without the prior permission of the owner of the property over which you're flying. Now, if you're flying over your own land, that's not a problem. Give yourself permission. But if it's a park, if it's a reserve, if it's a green grassy field in the middle of nowhere, you must contact the owner and get their expressed prior permission before you can fly over it. I'm not talking about taking off from it. I'm talking about flying over it. That's right. Every other country in the world, CAA controls the airspace. But in New Zealand, the Civil Aviation Authority has granted property owners the right to control that airspace, but only for drones. So if there's a grassy field somewhere, I can go and walk across it until I'm told to leave, but I can't fly my drone over it because it would be a breach of New Zealand's regulations, which I might point out are 10 years out of date. These regulations were put into effect in 2015. Back in 2015, drones looked like this. You know the Phantom here in the background? Drones did not look like this. This is a Mobula. It's 24 grams. There was no such thing as one of these back in those days. So the rules we have, in fact, I've got some documentation here. Excuse me while I bring it up on my screen, because recently the Civil Aviation, what did I say recently, in 2011 I think it was, the Ministry of Transport, which is the boss of the Civil Aviation, they put out a consultation. They wanted information. And in that consultation, they said that They questioned the suitability of the current regulatory framework for drones. They said some rules are no longer working as intended and do not help to achieve the best safety outcomes. They also said they wanted to remove or relax the consent provision. This is the property permission thing. This requirement has proved to be impractical, ineffective, and inefficient. So they're considering either removing it, or if the series of measures adopted, or relaxing it by introducing other safety measures like safe distances. So civil aviation, to their credit, we're going to enforce these 10-year-old rules, even though our boss, the Ministry of Transport, has said they're ineffective, waste of time, inefficient, and we want to change them anyway, and we know they don't work. But no, civil aviation says, well, it's important. It's important. The letter of the rule is more important than the intent. And for that purpose, I hold up my T-shirt again. And this is why sometimes regulations are no replacement. They're no substitute for common sense and good critical thinking. That's why I always promote people to think for themselves and think safe. Safety is a culture. It's not a set of rules on a piece of paper. Anyway, but having said that, just before I go on, having said that, I am Mr. Safety. Listen to this guy. He knows.
I am Bruce's FPV instructor, and I'm here to tell you that here is Mr. Safety.
There you go. I'm Mr. Safety. You got it from the man himself. And to prove that point, last Christmas, when all the people from CAA were having, boozy lunches and lying on the beach and had barbecues and having a few days off, I made a video about the rules, the drone rules in New Zealand, because Mr. Safety, thought it was important that if somebody just got a new drone for Christmas, or if somebody had come to New Zealand in our holidays, the summer holidays, because we have Christmas and summer, if we had tourists coming in with drones, these people needed to find a source of information so they knew what they could and couldn't do. So I made a video to educate these people. CAA, they're having a few weeks off because, hey, it's Christmas. Me, I'm working. I'm preaching the safety mantra, and I'm doing something practical by making a video that over 30,000 people watched. That's how you promote safety. You do something. You don't just enforce rules that are 10 years out of date. But anyway, I digress. Right, so they go on to say, this includes aerial footage of an area referred to as the Old East School by Burger King, where the RPA appears to be operating above the nearby trees, adjacent to State Highway 1 and within 4 kilometres of the Tokoroa Aerodrome. Let's take that apart. First of all, above nearby trees. Well, I looked at the footage. Let's look at the footage together, and it strikes me that this is pretty much below the trees. There's some pretty tall trees here, flying below the trees. Okay, flying over some tractors here, but they're made of steel, solid steel, and we're talking maybe a 24-gram drone. So any risk? They also say that it was adjacent to State Highway 1. See those cars in the distance? That's State Highway 1. Now, how adjacent does this drone get to that highway? Well, I would argue that it's quite a long way from that highway. It's not near the highway. So being adjacent to a state highway, I don't see why that is a relevance or a safety issue at all. And then it says within 4 kilometres of the Tokoroa Aerodrome. And again, look, see the trees there? See the trees? Below the level of those trees? At 4 kilometres of the Tokoroa Aerodrome. So what does that mean? Well, in New Zealand, if you want to fly within 4 kilometres of an airfield, aerodrome. I love the quaint terms they use from the 1950s. Fresh. The rules are 10 years out of date and the nomenclature is half a century out of date. Aerodromes. We have an airfield, but it's an aerodrome in the way that CAA looks at it. It's called an aerodrome. So flying within 4 kilometres of an aerodrome requires you to fulfill a number of conditions. First of all, if you want to fly out in the middle of an open field, away from trees like the ones that CAA admits are in this video, you must have a pilot's license, because apparently if you can fly a full-size aircraft, you can fly a drone. Apparently, or in a model aircraft. In New Zealand, you can go out and get your microlight license. You might spend a few hours getting a microlight license and be able to just fly solo on a microlight. Right, fantastic. It also means that you can then fly a turbine-powered model jet weighing 14.9 kilograms. You can fly that adjacent to a main manned airfield, an aerodrome. You can fly that because you're safe. Because being able to fly a manned aircraft means you know exactly how to fly a fast turbine-powered model, even if you've never done it before. To say 10 years out of date, never mind. But moving on. Or you can sit an exam and pass a qualification. Now this in New Zealand is the wings certification. We all know my history with the wings certification. I've sat the wings exam twice, and passed both times. It's not hard. It's a test of knowledge. about, do you know the rules? And I think, probably the reason that CAA consulted me on this is because they know I know the rules inside out. I had to school the investigators last time they investigated me because they didn't know the rules. I had to tell them what the rules were, explain to them. They didn't even know that the drone rules also applied to model aircraft. So that's why they're coming to me, because I know probably more than they do. And when it comes to experience and knowledge and competence, well, I've been doing this for 60 odd years. I don't think anyone in the CAA comes close to that. I don't think anybody testing me or trying to train me comes close to my level of competence and experience. So anyway, as I say, I've passed that exam, but it's not currently valid because I'm not a member of Model Flying New Zealand. And apparently the payment of money makes all the difference. If you don't pay money, you're unsafe. Funny how that works, isn't it? Anyway, but that doesn't matter because those nearby trees, I believe that drone, or RPA as they call it, was flying below or at the level of those trees throughout its entire flight. And that means it qualifies as what we call a shielded operation in New Zealand. And the shielded operation means you can fly a model right up to the boundary of an airfield if you want to, as long as you don't fly higher than the tallest object within 100 meters, and as long as there's a barrier between that'll stop the drone if something goes wrong and it drifts off into the distance. Well, I think that qualified as a shielded operation because I don't believe that it was higher than the trees in that footage. And also, if we're talking about a small drone like this, which looking at the footage, I think this would be a small drone being used. Maybe one of these, maybe a Mobulus 7, which weighs 24 grams with 4K video on it. It's, the distance would be the barrier. Given that this particular location here is probably, I don't know, maybe 3 kilometers from the airfield, I don't think one of these can actually fly 3 kilometers. Seriously, honestly, it won't get that far. So there's the barrier. You've got the shield, which is the trees. You've got the distance, which is the barrier. So I don't think CAA needs to be at all worried about that. So the points that CAA have raised seem to be, I think I've nullified them. I think I've pointed out that maybe because they're only working from the video. I mean, so am I. But I mean, I've got more experience, knowledge and understanding than them. So I would take my interpretation as being more valid than theirs. I mean, they drive desks and pens and donuts and coffee, but I drive drones from time to time. Right, and then they go on to say, Bruce, as you are in the video, yes I was the star of the video. I am approaching you in the first instance to see if you have any information regarding who was operating the RPA and when the respective flights shown took place. Well, I can say, I'm not going to tell you. From there, if the operator can be identified, I would value speaking to that person to better understand and therefore assess this concern. I think I've allayed your concerns, CAA. I think if you look at the video and look at the points I've raised, I don't think there were any safety concerns, especially, as I say, considering that I'm pretty certain it was something like this that took that video. And if you can raise any kind of argument that this poses a threat to man or beast, I don't think you're suitable for the job because you've got no common sense. So, but anyway, in this case, obviously they didn't know that until I've informed them that I think that's what was being flown, therefore the risk zero. In fact, it's interesting because a few years ago, I flew this very little drone in my own backyard, and I flew FPV without a spotter, beyond visual line of sight in my own backyard, and hundreds of my subscribers, I asked them to complain. So they all complained to CAA. Oh, look, he's broken the rules. Yeah, I'd broken the rules. I'd flown FPV without a spotter. I'd flown BV loss. I'd flown within 4 kilometres of an airfield. And the Civil Aviation had a perfect case. I even confessed. In fact, I'll link the video up. Is it here? One of these sides. If you want to see that video, go and have a look. I confessed to breaking the rules and challenged CAA to prosecute me. But they, in their inimitable wisdom, said, well, there was no risk to anybody, so there's no point in us prosecuting you. So I was let off, because even though I had egregiously broken the regulations, I hadn't endangered anybody. And I believe in the case of the flight that we're talking about here and all the stuff they presented here, there's no danger to anybody. There's no danger to anybody because of the factors that I've outlined here. And then they go that they want to assess this concern, including background planning and operation of the RPA and other relevant circumstances. Well, I would be pretty damn sure, given the amount of work I do in this field, that anyone flying even a tiny drone like this, in those circumstances, they would have probably had an aviation band radio on their belt listening out for aircraft. They probably had an ADS-B alarm, so that any aircraft with ADS-B that came within 15 kilometres, well, they'd know about it. I'm pretty sure they would have a spotter, and that they would have done all the checking first to make sure there weren't cables or anything else unforeseen. The fact that this flight obviously didn't cause a crash, no one got hurt, no property was damaged, means that obviously the amount of safety planning that was done prior to the flight was more than adequate. more than adequate. And this seems to be one of a series of videos. So there's been no issues over many, many, many months when these videos I've been narrating have been coming out. There's been no first-hand complaints. This complaint has come from a Facebook post. So there was nobody there saying, oh, look, that's dangerous. It was somebody or some organisation who doesn't like being criticised saw a post on Facebook, didn't like the post and thought, well, we'll deal to it, we'll complain to CAA. Right, now, finally to close, I've got to say, they're not threatening, they're not saying this is you, they're just asking for help. Although I am very much aware, having dealt with CAA in the past, especially in respect to two young lads that came down to the airfield to test out some of their fantastic creations a few years ago, if I can find it, I'll put a link up here, that one of the strategies used by CAA investigators is to pretend to be your friend, say, oh, can you give us a hand? Help us out, buddy. You know, we've had this complaint, we want to find a bit more. And in some cases, people are silly enough to actually respond and incriminate themselves. You know, they'll say, oh yeah, it was me, don't worry. And then, bing, pow, you know, big fine. But if we look at the CAA's own enforcement policy, the regulatory enforcement policy of the civil aviation, we find that section 8.2, it says, CAA cannot compel interview other than as provided by the health and safety people. And a requirement to do so must be signed off by the manager investigation and response manager. That's terribly worded. Read that. Look at that. It's stupid. It doesn't make any sense. But anyway, any person who's required to attend a compulsory interview must be made aware of their rights and treated fairly with respect. Now, I haven't been asked for an interview. I mean, you know, I probably won't be because I think they'll just, if they're really interested in safety and unless they've got far more resources than they possibly need, in which case it's a good case for downsizing the CAA, they've got much more important things to be dealing with than a drone flown over a grassy field. Now, and to make that point, there's a graphic here which the civil aviation themselves have published, which shows their regulatory priorities. And as you can see in this diagram, the most important thing is passenger and air transport operations. And as we go down the graph, right down the bottom there is private and recreational activities not for hire or reward. And they've got a picture of a drone, which shows that drones are the lowest possible priority, the very lowest priority in their enforcement of regulations. So I think in that respect, they've got much better things to do than to worry about someone who, by my estimation, was flying something about this size over a grassy field with no people around and with more than adequate safety measures in place. They may disagree. We'll find out. We'll find out. So in response to the Civil Aviation's lovely letter asking for assistance and asking if I can't help you, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, I can't help you. Maybe this video has been some help to you, but I can't help you. Unless you want to pay my hourly rate, which I'll include in the email perhaps, or they can inquire. I'll just mention I have an hourly rate if they really want my help. There we go. Thank you so much for watching this video. As you can see, regulators, nice people sometimes, sometimes not. Who knows? We'll find out. The real villains in the story are who the hell is so upset by a social media video of someone flying what looks like a tiny drone over a grassy field. Who could that be? Who hates my guts more than anything? Who has made special rules to stop me enjoying my hobby at the local airfield? Anyway, it's only a few months to the elections. Let's see what happens. Thanks for watching, people. See you soon. Go down to the comments. Tell me what you think about all this. And yeah, thanks for watching, guys. Bye for now.